Voices serves as the megaphone for individuals who have endured transformational change. By highlighting trials and triumphs, our desire is to create a safe space for pivotal conversations, which in turn will deepen the story and provoke hope for you, our listeners. As you may know, change is never easy, but it is inevitable. You are not alone in what you're facing. Your transformation is possible, purposeful, and now. And here's Aaron Wiggum, founder and managing director of New You, with this week's guest.
Welcome to another edition of New Voices. My name is Aaron Wiggum, and I am the managing director of New You. Also, I serve here as your host of New Voices. We have a special guest with us today. This guy here, he's my friend, my brother. We've had many of long conversations over the few years that we've known each other. And he was one of the first people when I moved to Tulsa to welcome me to the Tulsa area. We've had some basketball conversations and, all types of conversations about company growth and revenue strategies and all types of things. But this guy right here, you're in for a true treat. He is on a blazing trail right now. Brilliant thought leader. And what I love about him is that he's a man of integrity. I know him to be a man of integrity. If he says he's going to do it, he's going to come through. This is my friend, my brother. I'm so glad to share this platform with you today. None other than the CEO of Path, my friend, Chandler Malone. Welcome, Chandler.
Aaron, thanks so much for having me, man. And, I can say all the same things, about you and just the character and the person you are. And so super happy to be on here, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's dig in. I start every conversation with, tell us the Chandler Malone story. You can start wherever you want, going back to Dallas or, your hoop story. Tell us the Chandler Malone story.
Yeah. I guess we'll start off, in Dallas, played super competitive basketball my entire life. In middle school was flying on private planes to, playing AAU tournaments, had, the whole ESPN ranking and profile in high school, went on to play college ball. And I guess the thing that I'll say that I'll take away from just those basketball experiences, in youth, was, I had a lot of friends who, friends were, their parents went on to be super successful, build companies, sell them for $1 billion exits, right? Also, I have friends where, parents, weren't around, or, maybe my parents were buying, peanut butter and jelly, and bread and eggs, for folks. And I think seeing those things, as a part of my experience growing up at a really early age has really just given me an insight and perspective in the world. And it's really just, made my lens focused on how can I create pathways for economic mobility for folks? Because typically when I look at, my friends, when I was in elementary school and middle school, their life outcomes are almost directly correlated towards their parents' socioeconomic status more so than anything. And so then ended up going to school at Washington University in St. Louis, started my first business there, started an events company, spent some time working in the venture capital space, launched my first mobile app there, as well. Before moving to Tulsa, Oklahoma, meeting Aaron, working with the Atento Capital team, where, invested in some tech startups, and then launched my first company in the workforce development space called Boot Up. We raised a couple $1 million from investors. To date, have helped over 3,000 people get their first tech jobs, upskilling them from retail roles for technical roles. Have worked with top companies like JP Morgan, Chase, Best Buy, Home Depot, Dell Technologies, just to name a few. And, during my time at Boot Up, basically have been so focused on, how can I continue to build tools, products, pathways for folks who, are hungry for more in life, to make it easy for them to be able to actually go get more in life. And so, during my time at Boot Up, met, a friend and, a mentor of mine named Chris Gray, who launched a company called Scholly. They've helped over 5.5 million individuals secure over $100 million in scholarship funding for college. Chris recently sold his company Scholly to Sally Mae, one of the largest exits ever for any Black founder and the largest exit ever for a Black founder within the ed tech space. And so we recently launched a new company together called Path. That's basically an AI career development platform where we've got a career mentor and a skills trainer, and we're basically just focused on leveraging AI to give people access to the information, the tools, and technology they need to be able to build the lives that they want for themselves. And so, wanted to try to, condense everything down, real short there, but, super excited to be here with you, man.
That was probably one of the most efficient ones I've seen when people took you to this timeline, right?
Yeah.
Let's go back to your Dallas days, on the your upbringing. You talked a lot about sports, and first of all, who's your favorite player? Like who were you modeling your game after?
Yeah. So I'll say, as a smaller guard myself, Chris Paul and his, New Orleans days was definitely a treat of mine to watch. But I'll say that I've always just been a fan of just like those top competitors, and so, you look at guys like, during my, generation in my era, like Kobe and LeBron, who basically were just like the penultimate competitors for such a long, period of time. And I feel like I've always just been able to draw a lot of inspiration from seeing greatness,
Okay. And so when you were in these tournaments in AAU, did you play with any people who were now in the league, or how have you seen that kind of matriculate?
Oh yeah. Played with a guy named Julius Randle, who's been the leading scorer for the Knicks a couple years now. Played with a guy named Luke Cornett, who gets some pretty good minutes for the Celtics. Marcus Smart, who played with the Celtics for a while. Now is at the Memphis Grizzlies. Played against a number of guys too. Think about guys like Justin Jackson, Kelly Oubre, Norman Powell, just to name a few. So definitely playing at that really high level at a young age. Definitely also just kind of like wired my mind towards whatever I was doing. Kind of having a desire to do it at the highest level. So
yeah. And so how has that dovetailed into your experience as a founder now? Like the competitiveness and the level of rigor of playing at that level to now competing, when you're saying with billion-dollar exit companies, with these growth funds that you're talking to, with private equity funds that you may be talking to. Like, how can you make a correlation between the two levels of competition?
Oh yeah, I think one thing I've learned is that in the business world, if you view things competitively versus collaboratively, you kind of hamstring yourself a little bit. Yeah. But just that desire and that drive and that intrinsic motivation that you have to have as a competitor in sports, you have to have in business as well.
Right.
I think building anything from scratch is incredibly difficult. That's why it's like over 90% of startups fail, because of how difficult it is. But you look at those things that make you successful in sports, right? It's like doing the off-season workouts, 3 months before the season starts. Those are the things that help you in the fourth quarter in the playoffs, And, I look at, building a business now and, doing the customer discovery, right? The stuff that's not sexy, that's not going to make you money, that, maybe comes months before you ever put a product out, right? It's like taking those steps, right, before you actually get to, the moment of generating revenue or the moment of raising capital, right? Or the moment of hitting that game-winning shot, right? It just shows you that, right, like there's a level of preparation that has to be done, and no matter what you do, if you want to excel.
Yeah. So I love what you're saying about keeping the fire, the desire, the passion, but being more collaborative than competitive. Yep. I love that the way you're framing that, because it is necessary in business. Businesses succeed by working together. Typically, it's not about how do we partner, and so many businesses have grown by way of merger, right? Like we're better together than we are competing against one another. Now, you're probably always going to have your Pepsi and Coke, your Cadillac and Lincoln, Mercedes and BMW. You're probably always going to have like you're this or you're that, right? However, and that competition is necessary, but collaboration, especially as you're starting off the ground, that the power of collaboration is so much more valuable when you are taking flight, when you can actually see how can we work together to make an impact that we couldn't make individually, right? Yeah. With all that we have. So that's a great point that you bring up. So when you're at Wash U, so apparently you were a good student as well as a good basketball player. If you got into WashU, well, very decorated school. And so you're at WashU, you're playing ball. What was it like being a student athlete?
Yeah, it was super difficult for sure.
Yeah.
But I will say that, again, it definitely just like opened, me up. Right. And so, for example, I was able to find other opportunities on campus and even just like uncover my, interest in entrepreneurship and in technology, right, through people that I met, from, the basketball team, from my teammates. And so, I started that events business my sophomore year, and we talk about just, kind of like difficult decisions, right? The first event that my events business hosted was the same day as a basketball game that I had that was in Memphis, Tennessee. So I couldn't be present, for my company's first event. Okay. And this game in Memphis, Tennessee, we're playing against a team where their starting point guard, I had scored my career high against in high school,
Okay.
And so, we're sitting here in this game in Memphis when I'm at WashU, and I didn't get in the game at all. Right. Playing against a guy that, I'd had a lot of success against.
Yeah.
And, my business is basically, opening its doors for the first time. And I didn't quit from the basketball team right then and there, in that moment. Yeah. But that was really what planted the seed in my mind that let me know, like, look here, basketball is not what's going to put food on the table for me and create a living and a life for myself. I feel like it's taken me so far in terms of access and exposure and life lessons. But, I've got like a real business here that's making money, and I need to be focusing my time and energy on that. And so basically after my sophomore year, I hung up basketball and basically just fully focused on, the things that I was building.
Wow. Can you talk about the pressure, especially at such a young age, the pressure of having to make this decision of letting go of something that you love and finding a new love or falling in love with something else, right? Can you talk about, as a man, like how did you grapple with that? You're still developing as a person. You don't know if this is really going to go to the moon or not. You can play ball. You know that you're seeing guys that you've played against go to the league and, get contracts or whatever. So if it can happen for them, it can happen for you, right? Or maybe you play overseas, or you still have that, but you betting on yourself to let go of something you love to find a new love. Can you talk about that that quandary?
Yeah, I think there have been times where I've made really difficult decisions in my life, and I've been a bit naive as to everything that's going into it. And it's actually made it easier for me to make the decision.
Yeah. Okay.
But, I'll say, from that business, right, the first year of that business, my business partner and I made more money than what, we would have made basically taking any, entry level, job right out of school. Right. And so, as I'm thinking about what's next for me in life, I have something like tangible in front of me that's like showing me like, hey,
you could do this.
There is a path here. And I think as well, like, some of those things from playing sports early on in life and like having a level of success, right? Like that built my level of just like intrinsic, like self-confidence. Right.
Okay.
And so, then also having the success really early on in the business, just like further built that level of confidence. And so, I think that there was a bit of naivete, there that just, came into like, I don't know how difficult entrepreneurship is going to be just as a life, But at the same time, it was like, I feel like I had enough things where I could look at myself in the mirror and say, you know what, if I really apply myself, if I really work hard, there'll be some bumps in the road, but I'm used to that. But I know that I can do this if I really fully apply myself. And I think that in general, it can be hard to say, oh, hey, I'm stepping into something that I don't have full visibility on. But I know that if I apply myself, I can succeed. But at the end of the day, you look at anyone who's done like really anything special with their lives, anything special for their families or for their communities, right? There's always that period of taking that leap into the unknown and basically just believing in yourself, believing in God, believing in your family, believing in the people that you got around you, to really support you through that time.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. So what, junior year, right? You are now fully a entrepreneur. Well, you're still in school, but you're an entrepreneur. Did you have any, were you ever drawn to go back to the coach and say, can I just lace them up one more time? Like, can I got
Yeah.
10 more points in me. Like, any you ever fight with that at all, or the
Not
homecoming game, or no?
Not really.
Okay.
And I'll say that basketball is a great part of my life, and it brings me so much joy now, to
Mm-hmm.
continue to be able to play, and so like I love it so much. But once I went down this angle of like trying to like start, build, and grow businesses, I found basically like a new thing that I could just fully dive into.
That's good.
And then, around my junior year, that was when I got out of just entrepreneurship and really starting to get into technology entrepreneurship, right?
I see.
And so, I majored in American culture studies. I don't know how to code. I'm not a designer, right? I don't have any technical skills. And so really at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm in entrepreneurship. Now, how do I kind of finesse myself into this specific niche lane of entrepreneurship? Because this is really where I want to be an expert in, and this is where I really want to build my life in.
Okay. Wow, that's good. So you come to Tulsa, right? And we're here in Tulsa, and that's when we meet. Tinto Capital, all paths through Tulsa cross or by way of Mike Bosch. So we really salute the Mike Bosch for attracting all of us. Anybody I met here in Tulsa, they came by way of Mike Bosch, right? So he's like Route 66, right?
Literally.
But you spent time as an investor at a Tinto, and then you got that first investment from a Tinto, correct?
Yep.
And so can you talk about that? What did it feel like to get your first check of support, and from a place that like you've also worked deal flow, and now you're actually a part of that deal flow? Well, like talk about that. How did that feel? Did you feel accomplished or afraid or overwhelmed or perplexed? Like, what, share about how you felt.
Yeah. First, before I get all the way into that, I want to give a thank you to just everyone. Like, want to give a huge shout out to Mike, obviously for just seeing me, meeting and, believing in me after not knowing each other for super long. Also a huge shout out to Will for just, having like very like open arms, to
Will
me.
Gray, that's the guy.
Yep. As I joined the team. And then also I want to give a big thank you to Derek and Felicia Hatcher, who hosted the Black Tech Weekend in Tulsa the week
to
that
lead
I
up
met.
to that.
The week that I met Mike, and also want to thank Candace Matthews Burkeen also for introducing me to Mike. Right, like there were so many things that kind of like led to this moment that I don't want to like leave any of the humans that kind of led to it out. And then the country was in a really difficult place in time, and I'm not going to say that things are in a much better place now, but this was really right after the George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor situations just had all happened back to back to back. And there was an entrepreneur in town named James Milloway. He's the founder and CEO of Zero Card. It's a health insurance company, or health insurance tech company. And Jim basically reached out to me, and he was like, "Look, man, I'm not Black, but I want to do whatever I can to support Black technology entrepreneurs in Tulsa. Like, let me know what I can do to support." And when we had a very initial product out, that was built out by a college student, right, and no real revenue, just like a little bit of user traction, right. Jim believed in me enough to invest and, introduced me to a number of individuals, including Sanjay Meshri in Tulsa, including Frank Murphy in Tulsa, and then also including Bert Holmes, the founder of Quick Trip as well. And so, that, kind of like initial support, that they gave me meant the world, right?
Wow.
And it was like, I knew, myself, how hard I was going to go, how much I was going to apply myself, how hard I was going to work, the insight that I had, into the opportunity. But actually being able to convey and articulate that to others is a very, very difficult thing to do. And I'm thankful that I had an opportunity to do good work, right? For a Tinto, in front of a Tinto, to kind of speak to myself and the level of passion and intensity that I was going to attack the opportunity with, that, could shine a light on me in a way that I couldn't even articulate, myself. I will say when, those first checks hit the account, I was happy for sure. But it was really just a feeling of like heightened awareness. Yes. I have to lock in and, yes, this is a great opportunity, but I also have never had anything like this difficult, this serious, this real,
Right.
to ever, kind of, be responsible for ever in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about the pressure of, and we'll just touch on this for a minute, the pressure of being I'll call you a serial entrepreneur, if that's all right,
Yeah.
of being a serial entrepreneur like this and pivoting from idea to idea, leveraging your network, still having deal flow, and restarting again. Like, you talk about the pressure of that,
Yeah.
and how do you personally deal with it?
Yeah. I feel like in general life, you're faced with pressure, and it's just like, what type of pressure, what type of, uncomfortability are you most
Yeah.
comfortable with?
Yeah.
And for example, right, it's like we look over the past 2 years and the layoffs in the technology industry have been absolutely
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like it's literally been like historic in terms of, percentages of people that have been laid off, like akin to basically like the .com crash,
Right.
And so, for myself, like, I feel like I had not been in the workforce while an event like that had ever taken place.
Right.
But I was definitely very acutely aware that these things happen, and can happen at any day. But I also have a high level of belief in myself, right? And we kind of talked about that, earlier.
Right.
And so, there's the pressure of, wanting to build yourself and, build things for your family, build things for your community, working outside of an entrepreneurial context when you have less control over the situation. And there's the pressure of being the person who has more control over the situation. I will always choose the pressure of being the person who has more control over the situation.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I know if I have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go get something done, I will wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get it
Right.
done.
Yeah.
I know if I need to call 1,000 people to find the right person, I will go call those 1,000 people. Whereas, it's a little bit harder to still have that level of certainty,
Yeah.
when I'm not, kind of like the last, call,
Yeah. Yep.
And the other thing that I'll say is, life is really, really short, and so to be able to have the opportunity, right, to be building things that I think are meaningful to the world, and meaningful to other people, and like just by nature of that, meaningful to myself, is an incredible privilege, right? There are so many people who go through their entire lives and they feel so happy and they feel so blessed, and they have very little agency and autonomy around what they spend their time working on in terms of, how they, provide for themselves, provide for their families. I'm in a situation where I have been able to have a vision for the world, get the resources to basically go create that vision. And then it's basically just on me to execute, And so again, it's like, yes, there's a level of pressure, but there's also an incredible, just like level of like privilege and blessing, right?
Yeah.
To be able to be in a space where you can see something that you want for the world and have the resources to go be able to like basically try to bring it to fruition.
Yeah. No, that's great. And then, I think when you talk about that pressure and you say like there is this, there's different types of pressure, I almost kind of coin it as like, there's pressure and there's stress, right? And so pressure gives you energy. Stress takes your energy. And so they both do the same, like they both can look the same. But if you're thinking about like water coming through a pipe, you need pressure for the water to come through the pipe. But when it's too much pressure, it becomes stress, right? And that stress causes the pipe to fracture. So like, I think you're saying this perfectly, like being able to understand how, if you're in a stressful situation or a pressure situation, and then being also then to delineate like, but if I'm in the driver's seat of this, with that pressure also comes privilege. And so like, I'm not at the mercy of, I'm in the driver's seat of, and that privilege looks very different, right?
Yeah.
So I love the way that you're framing that. I just got two more questions, and then we'll do a call to action. Let's get to Path, right? So you launched Path here, and you're your co-founder, and let's talk about like what made you really want to put your energy into this and segue into this particular strategy. And how do you see? You talked about like solving problems in the world. How do you see Path being one of those solutions to the world?
Yeah. So, I feel like AI has gotten a lot of buzz, over the past, year or so, year and a half, maybe. But obviously, like AI had been a part of our lives for so long, right? Through, the timelines and the For You pages on the social media platforms, right? Through, the recommendations on the streaming services, right?
Mm-hmm.
But basically last year, the ability for individuals to use AI, that barrier of entry went down significantly.
Mm-hmm.
Using AI basically became as simple and as straightforward as integrating an API from another, platform into your software.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
if, folks have a software that, maybe sends out, an automated text message, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
integrating with, a platform called Twilio, right? And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
there are companies that make it easy for you to do complex tasks by creating APIs for your software to plug into. And so
Got
basically
it.
OpenAI, Meta, Anthropic, and a number of these
Mm-hmm.
other companies basically went and made, AI accessible through APIs.
Okay.
And so, with that being said, right, like what are some of our biggest problems in education? And, to take a step back there, I've been looking at some of our biggest problems in education and looking at alternative education for the greater part of the past 4 years now.
Okay.
And so one of the things that I've seen, right, is being able to provide that level of personalization that is
Mm-hmm.
needed in an educational experience to individuals at scale. And so, there are so many of these alternative education companies that, launched with great missions, but they
Yeah.
really struggled to deliver on their promises because they couldn't deliver personalization at scale.
Right.
And at the end of the day, we look at the world that we're in today, and industry is outpacing our major institutions, right? Like you remember the big crypto wave that, happened, right
Yep.
around 2020, and that's, making a really strong comeback, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at, like all these new AI tools, right? You even just look at the emergence of, all of the jobs, in renewable energy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
our legacy institutions, right? Our, secondary institutions, and even like our post-secondary institutions, our colleges and universities, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, they don't really have the trainings to help you learn for the
Right.
most in-demand roles and opportunities in the world. Not to
Right.
mention, they're not cost effective, for
Right.
individuals. And they also, add to this, lack of being able to provide personalization at scale.
Yeah.
And so for us at Path, we've basically just built this AI skills trainer and career mentor, right? The skills trainer does, what, I think the name says, and that
Mm-hmm.
you list any skill that you're looking to learn, and it will spit out a curriculum for you based
Mm-hmm.
upon the degree of expertise that you would like to learn that subject at.
Okay.
And then you're able to go through, take assessments at the end of each module. Those assessments take how you scored, and they begin to refactor the actual content to you in a way that you're going to best be able to retain it, right? And so we talk about this personalization at scale. We can create a curriculum for you around any skill set, and then we can deliver it to you in your best modality of learning. And so
Wow.
that's our skills trainer. And then our career mentor, we've basically just built out a chat bot that we've trained with thousands of conversations with career counselors, college advisors, sports coaches, even therapists. So it knows to ask you qualifying questions to understand more about you as an individual before
Yeah.
actually giving you expert advice. Once it
Wow.
gives you that expert advice, you can go to the skills trainer, learn whatever skills you need to learn. And then from there, we've got tools that create applicant tracking system optimized resumes, because right now 80% of people who are applying for jobs get vetted out by applicant tracking systems. And my philosophy is that if you get vetted out because you don't have the qualifications for the job, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you get vetted out because you don't have the right formatting or the right keywords, but you've got the qualifications,
Right.
there's an issue with that, and we can solve that. And that's basically what we built that tool to do. So once you've gained the skills, we help you actually get your artifacts together. Then once you have your artifacts together, we use natural language processing to rip some of those pieces out of your resume and then connect you with jobs that are a best fit for you. And so, once we actually connect you with those jobs, right, you get your foot in the door, you get the interview. We also have an AI interview prep tool that basically simulates questions that you'll get, gives you feedback on your answers, et cetera. And so, with Path, basically what we're doing is we're leveraging AI at every single feature point to basically improve and enhance individuals' education to employment journey. And, you talked about, kind of just how I want to be building solutions that are helpful for people.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if the fastest growing job opportunities are ones that people can't go get college degrees for, right?
Right.
Then folks still need to have a way to be able to learn those skills, right?
Skills. Yep.
Folks still need to be able to find ways to be able to position themselves in front of those employers to actually be able to get the jobs once they've gotten those skills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, for us, this is just another tool that's really built on focusing on folks who want better for themselves and giving them what they need to basically be able to have access to that.
Thank you. That's good, Chandler. Okay, so last question, and then we'll do a call to action. What was a time, or was there a time in your life where you had to hold on to hope? You didn't know if you were going, be able to pay your staff, or or maybe as a personally, like you were in a dark time and you were trying to figure it out. You didn't really have a path. No pun intended.
Yeah.
What was a time in your life, and you just share that in whatever way you like?
Yeah. Man, I'm just thinking about which one I want to use because there have been, a number of them.
Yeah.
But I think, I'll look at, for example, early in 2022, I went through a divorce that was very difficult, and I think that, there were a lot of things that were kind of like core to who I was as a person and like core to my identity. And I feel like a lot of those things that were core pieces, to my identity, were kind of like gone, after that. And it was like, we can kind of go one of two ways, right? We can continue to sulk and, feel sorry for ourselves.
Right.
We can, get mad at the world and talk about things that aren't fair, or we can look within, and basically be like, okay, this didn't go the way that you wanted it to go, but what can you learn from it? How can you be better from it? And what parts of your identity that you feel like, you don't have anymore, right, aren't serving you? And what parts of your identity that you feel like you don't have anymore are actually still core to who you are and core to what you do.
Yeah.
And I look at just like the work of my hands, right, with Boot Up, right? And this, happened, pretty shortly after we raised a pretty significant financing round. But before we had, picked up, some of our largest, enterprise customers, before we had launched, some of our products that, touched, the most users. And so like having that happen at that period in time was very difficult for me, but being able to look at the rest of my life and say like, I have all of these blessings here. I have all of these opportunities to show who I am, show what matters to me, be the person in the world that I want to be still every day. I need to focus in and lean in on those things rather than putting all of my energy and all of my focus into the things that didn't go well or the bad things that happened to me. Definitely went a really long way. And I'd say, just in general, to summarize that point, going through rough things, I think, focusing on what you can do and yourself rather than focusing on the things that are quote unquote happening to you.
Yeah.
Yep. It goes a very, very, very long way.
Yeah. Wow. That's great, Chandler. So how can people reach you? How can they follow Path or, connect with Path? And what's a call to action for our listeners?
Yep, definitely. So, I'm on all social media at cmalone.ai or Chandler Malone. And then our company's website is www.yourpath.ai. And so, for anyone who's, looking to pick up a new skill, anyone's looking to break into a new career path, anyone who's, working with large groups of individuals who, still fall into one of those two, demographics. I definitely encourage you, to visit the site at www.yourpath.ai, or shoot me a note on any social platform as well.
Cool. Thank you so much, Chandler. This has been great. I really appreciate the time and so proud of your success, man. Enjoy that Miami weather, and I hope to see you soon, man. Let's break bread and get connected. All right.
Yep. Most definitely. Much love, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening to New Voices. We are so excited for what is coming up in your life. Please make sure you follow us on social media. We are also follow New You, which is newutulsa.com. And our IG is New You Tulsa. Yeah, there you go. IG, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of New Voices. Visit our website at www.newuunlimited.com. That is NEWU Unlimited.com. Follow us on social media at New You Unlimited on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And a special thank you to our producer, Jesse Ulrich. If you're looking for self-improvement, join our programs for personal and professional development. New You is a way for diverse talent to imagine, discover, and actualize a 2.0 version of yourself. Bring your future into focus.